Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of Libservative, intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. What an amazing week. I am so excited. I have never been happier to read the news, and we are going to go over all of it as we approach Doomsday 2024 in just 1 week. Just 1 week, actually less than a week now, as we record on Wednesday, October 30th, we are either going to be living in a communist dystopia or we are going to be living in a Handmaid's Tale style Christian nationalist nation. I can't wait for it. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to have a great time. He, as always, is Corey Walsh.
He's Dan Griffin.
You look like a fucking idiot.
Who does? It's Halloween tomorrow, man.
I know. I got my costume on. I'm going as a privileged white man. That's the look I was going. That's the look I'm going with this evening. So
you're supposed to dress up as something you're not. Like clearly, I'm not a Yip Yip from Sesame Street.
Well, some people might disagree.
I didn't even know tomorrow was Halloween. These are just my jammies.
Dude, if you slept in that. You wouldn't be. Yeah, there's no way you would be married if you slept like that.
Fuck yourself.
Man dies from suffocation in Yip Yip costume.
Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there.
I sure won't.
We are way too happy to approach the end of the world. But I guess before we get into any of it, Corey,
save myself from crying, Dan. And guess what?
What?
Libservative podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
I am really impressed with your ability to walk and chew gum at the same time. You can move your hands with your face.
So fun fact for you to learn about me.
You've been practicing.
Well, yes and no, not like recently.
Hold on, before you say this, for those who are just listening, Corey actually is dressed as a Yip Yip from Sesame Street, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have to screenshot this so we can put it on our Facebook page. It's a Halloween special. But no, I took classes in puppetry. When I was a youngin.
I don't need a things learned tonight because that will suffice.
Oh yeah, you want to do things learned? I got something for you.
I just learned something. That you dabbled in puppetry as a youngster.
Yeah, it was fun. It got you out of. I did all the different things like that. Like that's where I first started fucking around with soundboards, and a little bit of acting and
it's just bullshit.
And stuff like that. Because it got you out of just sitting during service. You got to go do these little things to have fun.
Watching you give a soliloquy about your puppetry while wearing a Yip Yip costume from Sesame Street
and fucking nailing it
is maybe the dumbest thing that's ever happened to me.
Sesame Street, hit me up.
Oh, God.
So what I learned was,
I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
That's what Sesame Street's going to say. I'm going to show up in my Yip Yip costume. Like,
wait a minute. Wasn't the guy who did Elmo black?
I don't know. Elmo's red.
You asshole.
Fucking idiot.
If I see a black pilot, color as I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Don't worry, guys. He is acting. Yep.
What's your things learned?
Yep.
What's your? You're having way too much fun with this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna.
This is a serious time, Corey. The world is coming to an end in a week.
That's why I'm wearing a mask, because I'm crying. Okay, leave me alone. This week I learned that on this date in 1987, the Space Shuttle Challenger lift off for its final successful mission.
Oh God! After the conversation we just had, your things learned is about the fucking Challenger.
Yeah, it was a successful mission, Dan.
These idiots.
I'm not gonna bring the mood down by talking about what happened in part 2, because it just spoil the ending.
The next mission, yeah, we don't want any spoiler alerts. Go look up the Challenger, 1986.
No, don't. Just go out on a high note. Be like, yeah, I heard they had a successful mission in 1987.
Or yeah, 80. I don't remember when the hell the Challenger crash was. I wasn't born yet, or was a baby, whatever.
It was after this mission.
You don't say.
Not before.
Yeah, if Elon was around, that never would have happened.
Yeah, it would have just landed.
That totally sounds like something that like Donald Trump would say while he was trying to talk up Elon Musk. If Elon had been around in the 80s, the Challenger never would have happened. It would have been a successful mission. It would have
Just
been
like
no
how
problem.
if he was president, Ukraine or Israel just never would have happened.
Yeah, isn't that one of the brilliant things about Trump? Who did I hear saying this? I think it was Gad Sad was saying Trump lies all the time. But the thing about his lies is that it's stuff that's like egocentric and that's stuff that's like not falsifiable, which is what makes him good at it. Like, it never would have happened if I was president. Or like, I've got the biggest building. I got the biggest dick in the world. Like, it's all like non-falsifiable stuff.
Yeah.
How easy is it to drink through that?
It's not very easy. That was for performative only. I'm about to bring it inside and boof it, basically. Yep.
Anyway, my things learned this week, besides the fact that Corey mastered or dabbled, I shouldn't say mastered, in puppetry.
I am not the puppet master.
It's a little bit more of a life skill that I learned this week. You know how I feel like everybody I know has this problem at some point in their life, maybe their entire lives, which is where you just have trouble keeping the kitchen clean. You know what I'm talking about, Corey? I mean, you have a kid, and people with kids generally they have this issue even more than people like me, white privileged people. You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, I don't have a maid.
Just have trouble keeping the kitchen clean, right? I figured out the secret to making it a little bit easier. And it all has to do
paper plates.
Well, that's true too, but that's just wasteful and not very classy. And I am a man of privilege.
You put the paper plates away when guests come over.
It's the condition of the dishwasher, Corey, because that is the catalyst to getting everything set behind. You know what I'm talking about? You load the dishwasher, you wash it, and then you put off emptying it. And then all of a sudden, the dishes are piling up in the sink, and you don't want to wash them. You don't want to empty the dishwasher. So
I don't even have a dishwasher.
It just sets this world.
Or I do. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I do the dishes. Misogynist joke coming from the Yip. Who knew he was such a sexist?
This took a dark turn. Anyway, I'm just saying I don't have a dishwasher. Why is that a dark turn? Well, you don't have a dishwasher because you're poor. So that's no surprise. I'm trying to talk to people like me, people of privilege. This wasn't necessarily meant for you, this conversation.
God damn, this thing is fun.
Anyway, put your dishes away out of the dishwasher if you're, a man of privilege like myself, and you won't have as dirty of a kitchen. Like, leaving the dishes in the dishwasher is what starts that whirlwind. No wonder you use paper plates. You don't have a dishwasher.
It's just bullshit.
I'm a man of simple taste, Dan.
I feel you. Do you at least get the paper plates with like the nice designs on them, or do you just get like the?
No, you're throwing them out after.
Like the barbecue paper plates with no coating where you have to have 6 of them, or like
you have to double stack it, but it's still quantity over quality.
It's like
the good paper plates
gravy.
are for when we have guests.
Those are the ones with the that look like China.
Yeah, with the gold-plated plastic silverware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but we tell them not to throw them out. We're gonna wash them and reuse them.
It's so funny because I had that same shit at my wedding.
Yeah, that's what I base all my fine dining tips and tricks on going to weddings. And when I saw that like silverware at yours, I was like, this is a good idea. I was like, Dan must use these at home. He's probably gonna wash them and bring them back. I gotta make sure I don't throw it out.
Or he's in there garbage picking all the fucking plasticware.
What are you guys doing?
This is perfectly good stuff. Oh man, dude, you can tell we don't want to get into this episode because
we're filibustering.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun because this is going to be a fun 6 days if you're listening live. If you're listening to the recording, we've probably only got about maybe 2, 3, or 4 days left here before the doomsday scenario to take place. It's interesting because my birthday is Monday. It is the day before Election Day. I really need to enjoy it because it may be my last.
Your last birthday?
Yeah, I mean the world's going to come to an end the next day. At least that's the way the media is setting it up. Because we're at that point now where either trying to campaign for, the undecided voter. I think it's kind of over at this point. Would you agree? I don't really think there's going to be a lot of people going to the polls on Tuesday that haven't made up their mind as of right now whether they're voting for Trump, Harris, or nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I haven't made up my mind yet.
Interesting.
Well, I mean,
you as you or you as a yip yip?
Yip. No, I'm just kidding. No, between like my name or like
yip
someone else's name or like wasted vote.
You just don't know whose vote whose name you're throwing in that none of the above line, right?
Yeah. Relax, everyone. I'm still gonna vote down ballot. I'm still gonna.
That's what I did.
Do that stuff that I think is important.
I voted early. I cast my my 7 ballots to commit my portion of the voter fraud. Dude, did you hear?
Listeners will be pissed. I might be potentially picking women judges.
Oh, can't do that. Did you see this story of like these fucking mailboxes that are getting blown up by these psychopaths because they know ballots are inside?
Oh, in Washington and Oregon? I think it's the same guy.
Yeah, okay. Because Marissa, my wife, was actually the one that pointed these stories out to me, and then I guess there was actually like how like a lot of the precincts have those ballot drop boxes in them, like those white mailboxes or whatever. They're just for ballots and like official city business or whatever. Like those things are getting blown up. And it's like, you are, okay, so if you're the kind of person that's blowing up these boxes because you're afraid of voter fraud, you are actually committing voter fraud. When you go
it's equivalent to that story I always tell of, like people blowing up ballot boxes to try to, well, you don't know if it was them. It could have been like, think about it, Washington, Oregon. I think there's a huge influx of like Antifa or white supremacists and Antifa both out there, but like the boxes I believe were in like heavily blue states to where if you blow up one box it's not going to make a difference,
I guess. But yeah, it would make sense for somebody who's voting red to go in and blow up.
It's not like it happened in Macomb. That'd have been a way bigger deal if it was in Macomb.
It's just an interesting hypocrisy, right? Like if you're afraid that like there's voter fraud being committed by like illegal ballots or whatever, and it's like whatever, fair enough critique. I understand why you feel that way. Going and doing that is like openly committing voter fraud. You're openly taking people's votes away by destroying their ballots. They're legitimate ballots. Now, okay, maybe some of them are fraudulent. I get that, but you can't tell me that there aren't legitimate ballots in that box as well. right?
But that's why I don't think it was like, I don't know. We have to find out who did it. But like, based on like of who or why they would do it, I almost think it'd be someone more left wing than right wing.
Well, I don't know, because it's in a blue territory, so it would make sense for somebody from a red area in that blue territory to come up and blow up a box, I think, doesn't it? I feel like that makes more logical sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's no logic to it because they're blowing up boxes in the first place.
It's just dumb.
Yeah, this person obviously like isn't like mentally stable.
Well, that's interesting because I guess that's where we can start, because the early voting data is actually showing a significant amount of Republican votes. It's amazing.
Yeah, they broke a record in Georgia.
It's amazing what happens when your candidate doesn't run to a microphone every other day and tell his constituents not to go vote early when the other side is. You actually cast some ballots early. Smart play by Trump on that front. But the early voting data is actually looking really good for Trump at this point, as we're about 6 days away. However, I do think that while I still think Trump is going to win this election, I do think certain folks on the Trump side are getting a little too arrogant about this, because they bring up things like what's the betting market, poly market or whatever. They're bringing up the poly market numbers where Trump's up like 63-33 or 67-33 or whatever the hell it is. But you look at that and you go,
ridiculous margin.
Yeah, who's going on there and placing bets on an election? Like, think about, like, do you think it's going to be more Kamala voters or Trump voters that are gambling types? Like, just subjectively, who do you think is going to be more of a gambling type, a Kamala supporter or a Trump supporter?
Someone who's probably more blue collar.
I would assume Trump voters, on as a generality, are probably more gamblers than Democratic voters. So like, and plus it's kind of a new thing at least at this level. But the polls do still show Trump up by a couple of points, and that's within the margin of error. That is so much better than the polls were showing Donald Trump in 2016 and in 2020. Like, that's good news for Trump supporters. And it's so strange to me how Trump supporters and Trump himself are still upset about the polls and talking about how they're lying and how they're not accurate. They are actually mostly accurate. They
just like awful. The poly market polls better, and they don't.
Right. I get that. But polling is generally pretty accurate. It was way off in 2016. It really was like that, but that was mostly an outlier. But like, there's all this good news for Trump supporters, and rightfully so. And yet they're still not happy with it, because we're at a point now where you have Elon Musk going out and campaigning, and I don't really care who Elon Musk supports. He wants to go out and support Trump, throw millions of dollars, billions of dollars at him. Whatever. You do whatever the hell he wants with his money. He can try to convince people to vote for whoever he wants to. But you have people like him all over Twitter. You have Trump himself. You have a lot of Trump supporters that are setting up this narrative to where the only way he can lose is through fraud. That's what I think this is all about. It's this setup, this pre-bunking, if you will, that the only way Kamala can win this election is if there's fraud. Now, maybe that's certainly one way she can win the election, like theoretically, right? Certainly one way she could. You know how else? She could also do it by just winning the Electoral College. She could do it either one of those ways. So I'm kind of weirded out by this preemptive voter fraud discussion. And the reason is because we've already done this once. And the Trump supporters are already setting it up for the exact same thing again. Now, to be fair, Democratic voters and Democratic pundits are setting us up for the same bullshit from 2016, which is that the only way Trump gets elected is if America shows its racism or
foreign
its
interference.
Nazi tendencies, or foreign interference. That'll come after the election. That's usually a post-loss. At least they're smart enough to do that. But it's like, we're literally just playing the same stupid games that we've played for the last 8 years. And nobody of any consequence has any interest in changing this. As to where people like you and I sit back and laugh at it, because that's all we can do. Mr. Yip Yip.
Hello. Yep. But yeah, no, it's
add to that.
Well, no, you summed it up pretty well. But yeah, it's just you could nope, I ain't got nothing to say. You summed that one up pretty well. It's just interesting how like both sides are already setting it up for a chance to explain away the failure,
right?
Versus taking it on the chin and going, maybe we need to get a better candidate. You know what I mean?
Right. That's exactly right. And the big thing is like this late push that leads me to think that the liberal media is really shaking in their boots right now. But I mean, it could honestly be nothing. It could just be a late push, but it leads me to think that they're shaking in their boots right now because the talk of the civil unrest if Trump loses is really hitting a fever pitch over the last week. You know, this idea that if Donald Trump loses, we're going to see, riots in the streets. They said that last time and it didn't happen unless you count January 6th. Some people do, some people don't.
January 6th, definitely. There was a little bit of violence and unrest there, but that was happening all over the country.
And partially set up by the feds. We know that at least partially it was set up by the feds.
They had a hand.
just a minor one, or in your case, a mouth.
Yep.
Or in Ray Epps' case,
what was it?
We have to storm the Capitol.
But yeah, I mean, so like based on history, it did happen last time. So it's like it absolutely is a concern, but the hyperbole around it, the exaggeration, all of that stuff is just fear-mongering tactics.
Yeah, and you have
because there is a serious like apathetic like energy towards Kamala Harris. There was no primary. In the original primary, she dropped out first because no one liked her. She became vice president and then didn't do that great of a job for everything that they said that she was in charge of. And then Biden drops out. There is no primary for a new runner. She just kind of gets coordinated. And here we are.
Here we are, 6 days away. The other so
like I think a lot of times like it's even with Trump being on the other end, it's just votes against. It's not votes for. That's what everyone's basically doing.
Yeah, well, exactly.
People are going to vote for Trump because they're voting against the Harris administration.
They're voting against the establishment a lot of the time, too. That's the part that the Democratic side doesn't understand. It's like the amount of people that I talk to that are voting for Trump, it's not even a vote. It's not a vote necessarily for Trump, and it's not even necessarily a vote against Kamala Harris herself. It's a vote against the status quo. It's a vote against the establishment. It's a vote against the bullshit. Now, I explained to them that there isn't anywhere close to a guarantee that Trump is this anti-establishment candidate that you think he is, because he showed in his first term that he really was basically just a different version of the establishment.
He was a loudmouth, like center-right person who was a populist.
He was basically a 1990s Democrat. In his first term, I mean,
just said a lot of wild shit and pissed everyone off all the time. Just an agitator.
Yeah, just go look
shit.
Just go look at his policy record. He was a 1990s Democrat, which Vanel said Oh, but I
Avenel.
sent in Avenel.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read these names. But I sent in 100 ballots. Was that wrong? You didn't, and if you had, yes, yeah, that would be wrong.
Like it's funny. It's clearly a joke. And every time I get those texts saying, "Are you excited to vote?" I always respond with, "Oh yeah, I just sent in my mail-in ballot, and I can't wait to go vote at the polls too." And they just never respond.
And what I was going to say was
Hi,
late
Andy
pushes
Avenel.
by late pushes by
I don't know if you recognize me, Auntie, but it's me.
yeah, I'm sure she does. You're much better looking now. Late pushes by both campaigns. Trump's doing a good job, and the establishment is not. And here's how you can tell. The establishment is in this panic mode of talking, and we'll get into this, talking about, a quote unquote Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden by Trump supporters. It's talking about the racism and civil unrest that will happen if Trump wins this or loses this election. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's just out there having a goddamn party in this last week, because we're at the point now where there really isn't a such thing as an undecided voter at this point in the race. And the only thing you can really do with a week to go, or at this point, 4 days to go, is to just no. Well, obviously that, but also just galvanize your base as much as you possibly can. And the Democrats doing that by just talking about Trump being a Nazi and a racist and all this stuff, and about how dangerous he is. And Trump does a little bit of that, where, he just talks about how terrible Kamala's policies are going to be, and talk about how she's a socialist and a communist, which she's not. But it's more of like doing things like throwing a party at Madison Square Garden and just having fun. Like, that is the only thing that there is left to do. Trump's going on Joe Rogan and having a 3-hour conversation, like a legitimate Joe Rogan experience podcast, not like Bernie did, where he popped in there for 45 minutes. And I still gave Bernie Sanders respect for doing it when he did it, but popping in for 45 minutes and then saying he has to leave. Donald Trump actually had a rally here in Michigan, I think in the Traverse City area, the next day that he would, or the same day that he was late for, because he was doing like 3 hours late for
Joe Rogan pod. And he had one in Novi recently, and the leaders, like Muslim leaders from Dearborn, actually endorsed him.
Yeah.
Muslims.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, tell me if you saw that on your fucking bingo card in 2022. Yeah. So just be careful. Just be careful about the silly rhetoric on both sides. Cause it's just dumb.
Exactly. Like, okay, listen, we looked it up last week. There's like 644,000 people that have their hands in the pot when it comes to counting ballots in individual states. Each individual state has their own regulations, their own certification method. Each state has its own like watch parties. Each state has like security. Ballots are marked, ballots are checked. You see them do the whole process right in front of you. There's way too many hands in the pot for there to ever be any sort of like voter fraud to the extent that is claimed by President Trump.
Well, and the other thing is this, right? Because you had, I think it was Michael Knowles was talking to Ryan Grim.
Let me finish real quick. And it's going to be the same this year, if not even less plausible, because you're going to have a ton of Republicans keeping an extra close eye, making it that much harder. And going back to the 600,000 number with hands in the pot, look how often shit gets leaked when it's a circle of like 12 in the Oval Office, or when it's, or when it's secret intelligence. Even look at what happened with that leak of the Israel plan to attack Iran that they shared with America, and then it was leaked.
The whistleblowers
that was on skips, you know what I mean? Like those secure, controlled things.
You mean
like if that kind of stuff gets released regularly, you really think there wouldn't be any solid, true, 100% opinion changing evidence
Well, I think what Trump supporters would argue would be the fact that they're setting it up to where it's easy to discredit. But honestly, Trump supporters aren't making that any better on themselves with, the sort of wide-ranging, way too early conspiracy about voter fraud. And I don't think anybody would deny that there's voter fraud. But I also don't think, I guess I'm just a realist in this way where I don't think that many people care that much. You see it on the fringes, right? Like if you watch CNN or you watch Fox
News, really believe it like Trump does either, because they're still voting.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is this, right? Because the new one that's being pushed by Trump supporters is, there's no reason that it should take this long to count these ballots, right? There's no reason it should take us weeks and weeks. It's never been like that before. And it's like, to a degree, that's true. But also, we haven't had elections that were this close that often in the past. I mean, you could say 2000, where they did call the election for Bush on election night, but it was close enough for Al Gore to challenge, and it took till fucking whatever it was, December 18th or whatever, to finally make that election official. Now, because of that, and media outlets have said this, and even like actual decent centrist media outlets, they've said that they won't make that mistake again. They said that they've called that election a little bit too early. So like that's one factor. But the other factor is I heard Michael Knowles talking to Ryan Grimm earlier this week. They were having a little debate on their little show that got a little too stupid for me, so I turned it off. But I did hear enough to where, Michael Knowles, who's a conservative pundit who works for the Daily Wire. He still works for the Daily Wire, right? I don't know. Doesn't matter. He was like giving examples of other countries and how quickly they were able to count their votes. Like he gave France as an example. And my thing was this. It's like, okay, France is like population wise, like a 20th of the size of the United States. And also they have a nationalized election process. So it's kind of that give and take, right? It's that you can have one or the other, but you can't have both. Like we could have a nationalized election process in theory, but guess what you're doing at that point? You're now actually taking more rights away from states, which is supposed to be a conservative value.
Right.
So like which do you want? Do you want the election process to be more streamlined and have a winner faster by having a nationalized way of counting ballots? Or do you want to have states have their rights to oversee their own elections? Because it's very unlikely you're ever going to have both.
I'd rather them take longer and get it right, Call me
and
crazy.
Not take rights away from states. I think you're a states' rights
take
guy.
Rights away from states, yeah. Because
anyway,
because I feel like the states having individual control in the most sense, there's just more hands. Like even if one state is corrupt, one state being corrupt with their voting process is way better than the whole national voting process being corrupt. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're decentralizing it.
Yeah, there's a lot more likelihood for corruption the more you centralize it, the more possibility there is for corruption, I think is your point.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a lot of fuzzies inside this thing. They keep getting in my eyes.
Here's a fun video that Elon Musk shared earlier today. This is actually our Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, talking about some issues with the Dominion voting machines that they've discovered here.
Issues with the programming of the bats with specifically from Dominion. Mm-hmm. Why was that only caught in the past few days, and why can't it be fixed? I saw the release.
This is a nationwide issue with Dominion voter access terminals in the counties that use them. And the voter access terminals, of course, not all the machines, just the ones that are accessible, have an issue with the straight party voting and a programming
and
issue.
Dan, you know what you do? Pause it real quick.
Nationwide, and I think all of us that use Dominion machines.
If there's a possibility that Dominion machines affecting the election integrity, then just pull them and do paper ballots. We do paper ballots in a lot of places in Michigan.
Yeah, fair enough.
Machines were unhappy to learn about this during the testing period and as early voting began. So we're working with Dominion to seek accountability on that front, and also are working with our clerks to ensure voters are aware of this programming issue that will require them to ensure they are voting every section on the ballot.
So the problem appears to be with these
programming
Dominion machines
that if you click straight ballot, it gives
it's not going to read it. It's not gonna read it right. So this is being posed by Republicans or Trump supporters.
What did Elon Musk say? What the hell is going on?
What's going on here, Dominion? But it's being posed as if it's like, see, there's fraud going on. But like, this is a Secretary of State, a Democrat in a Democratic-run state, who is doing a press conference telling us that there's actually something going on with these machines.
Right, not hiding the problem.
Right, doesn't it stand to reason that if like this was part of some big fraudulent thing that they would have just kept it quiet and run this the way that it was? You know, or is it? I mean, I guess it could be some sort of weird reverse psychology. You know,
Dude,
but like,
always remember, never chalk up anything that could be nefarious, that could be easily explained away with malfeasance.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so like if you're going to make the claim that this is some sort of reverse psychology, right? Which, okay, I guess there's a chance that it could be
deniability.
Yeah, I just that you have to be under the impression that elected officials are that organized. Like the stuff that they
that's what I get at
done,
with 644,000 people. Like we're talking keeping 644,000 people all in lockstep, telling the same lies and same alibis to make this happen, and all having each other's back and no one saying a word for 4 years.
Yeah, it's just, and that's the thing is like, I don't really have an issue having the conversation
about two guys that killed Jimmy Hoffa.
Right. I don't have a problem sitting around talking about the possibility of like one side or the other trying to cheat, because I'm a sports fan. Okay. And what I always say when teams get busted cheating, whatever it takes to win. Like I used to be like, when I was a kid, I used to have like more values and morals when it came to that kind of shit. But like now it's like when the Houston Astros got busted stealing signs and banging on a trash can, I went, fucking whatever, man. They cheated better than anybody else. This is my team. But when the University of Michigan got busted stealing signs, bro, whatever. He was just they were just better at it than everybody else. So like, I get the concern about cheating when you were trying to win something. I'm not like immune to that.
No, I get it.
I thought you were going to give me the open mouth.
This just in. Dan says he's a cheater.
But it just always go. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Like I'll stack a card at the bottom of a euchre deck or something like that. You know what I mean? Like when I'm dealing, like I don't have a problem with any of that shit. But
Liberty Twitter says he knows illegals who vote.
Oh, good. Good for you.
Well, what kind of elections are we talking about though? Like federal or state?
I mean, it's just anecdotal. One person says they know illegals who vote. I mean, yeah, that's all that needs to be said, I guess. That's, you know,
presidential.
Like, huh?
I guess I'd have to see evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like we believe you, Liberty Twitcher, but that's your anecdotal experience. Your anecdotal experience is not proof that there's mass illegal voter fraud. Either way, I get the idea. I get the concern. I really do get the concern. I just haven't seen enough. Anyway.
No, and I'm all for more
security.
Like it's annoying to me that SAVE Act didn't get passed, and that was what was holding up the possible shutdown. Like that should have been passed.
I agree. And honestly, like I have no issue with voter ID. Like, you know, when you're told you're a racist if you want voter ID, like, no, actually, you probably should. You probably should prove that you're a citizen. But like the thing that they always turn to is like, well, it says that if you're a citizen, you get to vote. It doesn't say that you have to be a citizen with a valid ID. But it's like, yeah, but don't you kind of have to prove somehow that you're a citizen to have the right to vote? Like, it's this stupid circle of arguments that just never goes anywhere. Not to mention, every time I've ever voted, like, you go into the polls, you show them your ID. I've never actually seen anybody do the affidavit thing, I guess is what I would say. Have you? Granted, I haven't, you know, you're only in a polling place for a few minutes and you're only ahead or behind a few people maybe that you talk to in line or whatever. But it's not something I've ever seen. I've never seen like the weird affidavit signature or whatever.
So I was with a buddy where he should have been able to do an affidavit, but the poll workers weren't knowledgeable enough to do it because he
so he didn't get to vote.
Yeah, he just moved, and his driver's license had his new address, but his mailing address was still at his old address. It wasn't changed yet, so they didn't let him vote.
Well, he should have been able to go vote in his old precinct then. Oh no, I guess he couldn't have because his ID had a wrong address on it.
Right.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like,
so shit like that.
Because if he tried to go to his new precinct where his actual address was, his address would be for his old place. If he went to his old place, his address had the new address. You know.
You changed your name to Yip. That's a.
But but there is the affidavit that you can do.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know.
And then
I've never had to do it.
And your signature matches like what's on your address. And Michigan's pretty good with that actually, because you remember when those 243,000 signatures were plagiarized by that data company.
Mm-hmm.
Like that survey company here in Michigan.
And yeah, wasn't it like to get a ballot measure on or something like that? I can't remember what that was for.
It was either that or to get names on the ballot.
Oh, gotcha.
Because like 4 or 5 Republicans got snared up in it.
Which should just be easier anyway. So like that's the kind of cheating I kind of appreciate.
What I'm saying is those signatures got turned in, and then they look at them, and they have to match the signature you physically did as Secretary of State.
Within reason, yeah. Because I don't know about you, but my signature looks different every goddamn time I sign it. So it's just got to be within reason, I think.
Yeah, like
I don't know. I voted by mail this time, so like I had to sign the thing. So hopefully my ballot counted. I think I can check that. You can check it in the state database. I haven't checked yet because honestly, I really.
Yeah, that's interesting to say that because actually I had that in my notes today. That also. In 47 out of 50 states, you can actually check your ballot, the status, if it was accepted and counted, and all that jazz. The only states that you can't do that in are Illinois, Missouri, and Wyoming. 2 reds and a blue. Illinois blue,
2 reds and a blue. Yeah, Illinois blue because of Chicago. Illinois is a heavy blue state. It's because of Chicago. Yeah. What do you think about these? Did you want to talk at all about the quote unquote Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden? Jesus Christ. Oh my God. And this was the thing that kind of set me over the edge, along with the journalists rage quitting at WAPO because Jeff Bezos doesn't want the Washington Post endorsing a candidate. These are the two. What did he say this time? I dropped off my ballot yesterday. Lots of liberals in line voting. I judge them by appearance. I mean, who doesn't? It all just depends on the amount of flannel and the length of the hair. Although flannel could go both ways, honestly. If you want to disguise, wear flannel. You could be an Oregon liberal, or you could be a Northern Michigan Trump supporter wearing flannel. It's an interesting fabric.
I think it depends on if they fuck or not.
This quote unquote Nazi rally is like this. As we get to the end here, this is where you see the establishment media just going absolutely like all in on being unhinged. This idea that because Trump held a rally at MSG and he's perceived
For people
by
that don't know what MSG means, it's Madison Square Gardens.
Madison Square Garden. So because he's perceived as a fascist, they just immediately linked it to the 1939 Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden.
Dude, MSNBC played side by side video footage from the Nazi rallies in 1939.
Yeah, I was watching Glenn Greenwald's show, and he's like, I don't see. He basically, without saying as much, he's like, I don't see any similarities between these two rallies. You look at the footage from 1939, and it's just a bunch of white men. Like it's just a sea of white men as far as the eye can see. You see Nazi flags, you see Hitler salutes, like because it was a legitimate Nazi rally
in America. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you look at the footage from the Trump rally, and there's like Orthodox Jews in the front row, like a bunch of people of color, like all over the place. And then like
both sides have just completely taken away like the disgust associated with words like fascism and racism. You know what I
they don't
mean?
mean anything anymore.
Like,
these words mean nothing. They mean nothing. I would
words
venture
are supposed
to guess
to mean something.
I would venture to guess that, I don't know, let's say 3/4 of people that would say that Trump is a fascist have no fucking clue what a fascist even is. Have no idea what an actual fascist even is. I had somebody the other day, I witnessed this. I wasn't part of this conversation, but I witnessed some young liberal girl talking to somebody who was, I don't know if he was like a hardcore Trump supporter, but he was clearly voting for Trump. And she was, she pulled the whole, Trump's just like Hitler. He's a fascist kind of thing. And he just asked a simple question. He goes, can you name an actual like similarity between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler? And she froze. Because honestly, there actually is an easy answer. If you're looking for one similarity between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler, they were both charismatic leaders. Like that's like if you narcissistic charismatic leaders. Like you could absolutely name something, but she was just so taken aback by the question because nobody's ever challenged her on that thought before that she didn't even know how to answer it. She couldn't come up with one similarity between Hitler and Trump, even though there's at least one obvious one. It's so dumb. That might be the only one, honestly. I think we've both demonstrated neither of us think that Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler or anywhere close to it. You can not like the guy and think he's going to be a shitty president without throwing that stupid bullshit out there and trying to scare people away from him.
Tariffs are a good idea.
Oh, for God's sake. Dude, that was what was so funny. Sagar and Jetty talked about that when it comes to the Rogan interview, and I thought Sagar was like spot on with this. I guess we can get a little bit into the Rogan interview here.
Wait, we were still talking about Madison Square Garden. There's still a lot to unpack there.
You have more to say? Well, let me just say this one thing. Never mind, I forgot what it was going to be. So what else did you have? Because I'm pretty much out of stuff that I noticed about this.
Tony fucking Hinchcliffe.
Oh, Tony Hinchcliffe. Tony Hinchcliffe makes a joke about Puerto Ricans and everybody throws a fucking fit. I love it.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I am a Tony Hinchcliffe fan. But
oh, me too.
He probably they probably shouldn't have had him.
He probably shouldn't have taken that gig.
Him on that stage. He's a roast comic. Anyone seen the Tom Brady roast?
Yeah.
He did make fun of everybody.
Roast comic.
He was on there making fun of everyone.
Yeah, why did they pick out the Puerto Rican joke? Is it because that was the one that was like the most quote unquote off color?
The Puerto Ricans might swing the vote in Pennsylvania.
See, that's strategic there by the liberal media. Sometimes they've at least got their brain tied on a little bit.
Yeah. And,
from a strategic perspective, I mean.
But like, it's like I was talking to actually old Jay over there about this. Like, it just doesn't add up. Like almost like it was like a troll. Like he was trolling them. Like, and like with that slim chance of like costing fucking Trump the election. Just for the lulls. Honestly, just to make people laugh.
I think it was just the mistake of having there's a
shock comic.
It's a really simple explanation for this. It's just the mistake of having a comedian at a political event, like for the reason of providing comedy and entertainment. Like, because Tony's because if you know comedians that are like of Tony Hinchcliffe's ilk, you know, he's of the Shane Gillis ilk, these kinds of guys, right?
Rob Schneider not available.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like they're not gonna hold back, right? They're gonna go in and do their thing, and like that's what Tony did. And honestly, I thought he was fucking hilarious. And then the best part is, you want to sit there and call Trump supporters bigots. When he made the Puerto Rico joke, they all groaned at it.
Yeah,
everybody in the audience groaned at it.
That was something that I found interesting as well. Was like when he was up there making those jokes, everyone was kind of booing to the point where Tony Hinchcliffe had to say, "Wow, an awfully groany crowd tonight."
Yeah, it's like,
in his like waspy voice.
Yeah, now as if they weren't going to get to, as if they hadn't already done it. Now the right's going to get to claim him because.
But there was also, yeah, he's always been. He lives in Texas, brother.
That's true.
But
he's one of those Austin transplants.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say? But it was also like, and which is crazy is there was way more wild shit that would be considered unexpected than that coming from a shock comic, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of like really
one guy calling people an antichrist.
Yeah, calling Kamala Harris the Antichrist, and it's like, yeah, there was a lot more out
there.
Holding
up a cross. I think I saw a picture of him like holding up a cross.
I don't know. I only watch clips of it. Like, it's not something I had really any interest in paying any deep attention to, because it doesn't mean anything. Like I said, it was just a party to galvanize Trump's base, which he, as a presidential candidate, is something he should absolutely do. I'm not his base. So like, I don't care. I'm not going to watch but I've seen the clips. I've seen some of the stuff, and like, there just wasn't anything there that surprised me, I guess is what I would say. Like, there's always somebody at a Trump rally or at the RNC who's going to say some out there shit. A lot of times it's Trump himself. This time it wasn't. Have you noticed that all of the stuff that's being said about how horrible and racist and Nazi like this was, none of it had anything to do with anything that came out of Trump's mouth himself? Have you seen anything? I haven't seen much. Like, did Trump say anything that the
honestly, I don't think there's been anything out from that rally that he said.
That's what I'm saying. It's
all
so
the people that spoke
weird.
Before him.
It's so.
He's been pretty pretty reserved, honestly. Well, I guess he was saying some shit at some other rally, talking fucking wild again, saying wild shit. But like on the Joe Rogan podcast,
that's what Trump does, because that's what he does in front of his base. You know, it's like Kamala does the same shit. Anybody who's like look, I'm in a room full of people that love me. Of course, I'm going to say some wild shit. But yeah, did you want to get into the Rogan interview? Did you take any notes on that?
I didn't take any notes, but I watched it.
So to your point, Corey, you made this point briefly just a second ago. Trump started off that interview like he was still Trump, but a little bit quieter, more reserved version of himself. He got riled up a couple times. Yeah, he got riled up a couple times, but he wasn't like, it's like, okay, so this is what happens when Donald Trump's having a one-on-one conversation with somebody and doesn't have a crowd of people in the room with him.
Right, but Joe Rogan usually matches people's energy. So like when he was like that, Joe was pretty chill too. And I think that made him relaxed, you know?
Yeah, and One major thing that I picked out about that interview, because this is maybe the first like real conversational long form interview with Donald Trump that wasn't done by like 60 Minutes or like Sean Hannity. So, somebody who's either gonna,
for like
well, that's true. That's true,
but Friedman.
But Theo is a lot more. I shouldn't call him more of a comedian than Joe, but his podcast is certainly more of a comedy style podcast than Joe's is.
Yeah, he did Lex Friedman.
Yeah, I didn't listen to that one. But what I was going to say is it was the first one where it was set up in a way that it was an actual conversation and not like either a dick stroking session if he goes on like Fox News or like a gotcha session if he goes on CNN, I guess is what I was trying to get at. And you could tell that Trump knew that. And so like he didn't have to like get all pumped up for this. He was just going to have a regular conversation with Joe Rogan. And I give Joe a lot of credit. He did apply pressure and kept trying to ask questions and ask questions and ask questions. And Trump did what Trump does really well. This is what makes him, even though he wasn't historically a politician, this is what makes him a good politician. He was very evasive at times, and wouldn't get to the point.
And Joe would try to call him out. He goes, "This is a hell of a weave."
Yep. And that's just something that politicians do. And I give Joe a lot of credit, because multiple times he tried to suck him back. He tried to get him to come back. And he did on a few of it.
Being a political interviewer, Joe Rogan did a pretty damn good job.
You could feel that, especially as it started. I think Joe felt like he had some pressure on him for this one.
Yeah.
You could kind of sense that. Because I listened to my fair share of Joe Rogan, and I've never really heard him in that sort of like, all right, we got to get down to at least a little bit of business here. I think he handled it really well. I think Trump fucked up trying to tout tariffs again. I don't know why he's so obsessed with tariffs.
Terrible
He's so
idea.
obsessed. He's so obsessed with tariffs. And I think Dave Smith made this point on one of his latest episodes, where it's like Trump completely missed an opportunity because he pivoted from like abolishing income taxes, which, by the way, and we won't get into why, but the president actually has no power to do. But having a guy like a reasonable presidential candidate discussing the possibility of getting rid of federal income taxes, like, dude, let's have that conversation. Instead, he pivots to, oh no, we're going to replace it with tariffs. Tariffs are the best. We love tariffs. The tariffs just make shit more expensive. Everybody knows this,
dude. And like, whatever you want to say about like neoconservative and neoliberalism, when it comes to free trade, there is a reason why massive war hasn't outbroke, in the last like 70 years. And a lot of that has to do to trade.
Trade takes wars away. Trade makes wars not happen.
Exactly. China is in an economic free fall right now. Right? They're trillions of dollars like in a deficit. They have like 500, I think it's like a ridiculous number of homes that are just sitting vacant. 300 million men who will never have a wife. Like they like what supports and then takes care of their debt, because they don't have a strong like currency that people can buy the debt. They have to rely on exports. Make that big country all of a sudden lose all of that money, and you make all those people really angry.
Now they become real desperate.
A communist country is going to do one of two things: turn on its own people, or like go to another country.
Probably both.
And Taiwan is there. Like, it's just not a good idea.
You don't want to force China into a desperate situation. If they get there themselves, that's one thing. But
right.
If they have the ability to blame it on you,
they're on their way.
Do you have anything else that you noticed from the Rogan interview? I will say this.
My son Aaron, he's so smart. He's also very tall.
He's tall.
He's very tall. He's a smart boy. And he's very tall. Boy, those really pilots in that plane, like,
oh yeah,
they were some handsome sons of bitches. I tell you, they could have been movie stars.
Why does your Trump sound like Regis Philbin?
I don't know. I can sometimes nail it, like on like short quips, right? Like they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats.
Now that kind of sounded like that sounded a little bit like Bernie Sanders.
No, Bernie Sanders is more like this. We need to take care of Medicare for all.
Medicare for all. The picks for his cabinet, admitting that he made mistakes. I'll give him a little bit of credit for that. He fucking called John Bolton an idiot. He called him evil.
I like that.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with that. I thought that was good. I have no faith that he's not going to make the same mistakes again. Honestly,
right.
I just have no faith that that's going to happen. I hope he proves me wrong. And I'll be the first to admit when he does.
You're speaking if he wins.
Correct. I mean, I think he's going to win. I don't think it's going to be a landslide like some of his supporters are expecting and Polymarket is expecting.
Yeah,
it's going to be very close. And I think it's going to take several days for us to know for sure, but I do think ultimately he's going to win.
I don't think we're going to know by the end of the night.
Oh yeah, from
Which are we recording that night?
Unless it is a landslide. Yeah, we're gonna have our election special. I'll be in the fascist state of Florida. I'll
be in the blue state of Michigan for now.
I'll probably be all hammered and stuff, walking around with my phone. I probably won't have very good audio quality, but it'll be okay. Be all right. I'm gonna try and work something out. Hopefully Bell will be able to join us that evening. And maybe we're trying to find maybe a special guest to come on and hang with us for the show. That's all I really had from the Rogan. There wasn't any surprises. I'll say this is the last thing I'll say. From a electoral strategic perspective, I don't think Donald Trump could have made a better choice than actually taking the interview with Joe Rogan. And at the same time, I think Kamala choosing not to do it was also probably the right choice politically for her. So that's what I mean. Like Trump,
she did say she'd do it. She gave him the stipulations of he had to come out to her, and she only can give him an hour.
Okay. And there's like a scheduling conflict, and Joe's like, "No, fuck you, I'm not doing that." You know what I mean? Like honestly, whether or not Joe Rogan interviews Kamala Harris has absolutely no effect on Joe Rogan's bottom line. Like he could not care less.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna like lose him viewers if he doesn't do it or anything like that. So
yeah, now they get to paint him as more right wing.
That's fine. They already did, man. There was like some, I don't remember if it was WAPO or the Times, or it doesn't really matter. They all kind of run together. Like some editorial piece about how why does Trump have to be interviewed by the worst person ever? Did you hear about this? I don't know who wrote it. I don't really care. Like Joe Rogan's the worst person ever. Like that's your take on who Joe Rogan is. I mean, you don't have to like him. His show doesn't have to be your cup of tea, but the worst.
Verbally sells, man.
Unbelievable. It's just
their article has to pop out among like thousands of others, and obviously it worked.
You got the Obamas. You got the Obamas out here scolding people. Isn't that good? That always works, right? When you scold people into voting a certain way, shame them into voting.
Oh, I can't wait to be shamed by the losing side.
Oh yeah. You're the reason my person lost.
I heard it in 2016. I heard it in 2020.
How do you feel about the journalists rage quitting at WAPO and the LA Times?
Oh no. My
feelings
clearly liberal news isn't doing exactly what I wanted to and endorsing the person I like.
Are you gonna get a Washington Post subscription just so you can cancel it?
I'm curious what the bounce back rate's gonna be, because these people, like, all of their algorithms are still gonna feed them Washington Post articles.
Yeah,
and they're gonna click on it because of an outrageous headline.
It's one of those things where like,
I don't be to read this article, subscribe, and they're gonna be like, God damn it,
I gotta go back
again.
Here's the thing. I don't have any faith that like the way that WAPO or the LA Times does news is going to really change all that much. But I am going to say that the owners of these publications deciding not to endorse a candidate is like at least like a small step in the right direction towards at least trying to feign journalism over activism
again.
What they're
paying for. They're paying to have their opinions regurgitated to them in a more elitist fashion, intellectual fashion, have you?
That's exactly right. And what the funniest part is, I actually think the LA Times one is a little bit funnier because the reason, have you heard the story behind why the LA Times didn't endorse a candidate? Are you familiar with this?
No, tell me
They have
about
they have a little bit different reason than Jeff Bezos. Okay, so I don't remember the guy's name, but the owner of the LA Times has a daughter who is like a serious leftist. And she essentially demanded that the paper not endorse Kamala Harris over Israel. So
fair. That's
somebody that's even further left than the LA Times is the reason why the LA Times isn't endorsing the candidate that's on the left. I find that amazing. I find that actually pretty fucking awesome.
That's
because
why
it's
Harris
that kind of
getting my vote.
And that's the kind of leftist, that's the kind of Jimmy Dore style leftist, even though he's gotten a little crazy lately. But the Jimmy Dore style leftist that, like, even if you're a conservative, you can at least have respect for like at least a principled form of leftism, as like, which is not what the Democratic Party is, and it certainly isn't what the Democratic elites are. And so I find that one fucking amazing because they want to come out and say that like they're supporting fascism by not doing this. Meanwhile, the reason that they're not endorsing Kamala Harris is over a seriously far left issue because the candidate's not far enough left for them. I have a couple.
Dude, like, you ever on TikTok? There's so many wild pitches of like from Democrats, like not knowing how but doing their best to get those people back. I remember I commented on that one guy's post. I forget his name. I sent it to you guys on TikTok, and it was basically voter shaming someone for voting for Jill Stein,
right,
over Kamala Harris because of the Palestinian thing.
Yeah.
And I commented like, "Wow, the Democrats are making a concerted effort against this," and he responded with,
"It's just that lesser of it's just another lesser of two evils." Argument when they do that, because their whole point is always, first of all, it's extremely flawed. They always say things like, well, if you can't vote for Jill Stein, you got to vote for Kamala Harris, because if you care about the Palestinians, then your best chance, quote unquote, that's what they always say, your best chance of having anything done about that is to vote for Kamala Harris. Like, I'm not looking for a best chance. You know what I mean? Like, if that's your issue,
I want the Democrats to know that they are not getting my vote with this bullshit candidate.
Right.
That's our best chance of them changing their fucking tune.
And that was the whole reason why, you know, the Jimmy Dores of the world turned on the squad, because of the force the vote issue.
Yeah, no, that's what pisses me off the most about the Democrats, is they just string people along. You remember Biden was supposed to be just to get us back to normalcy.
Next time.
Biden was supposed to get us back to normalcy. Yeah. Remember when they said that?
Mm-hmm.
That was just whenever I say they, it's usually like the narrative that's out in the ether, like the
royal
news
they.
Like, but the mainstream media was like, "It's get us back to normalcy." Where is she?
67 Corvette.
That's your right there.
Yeah, and then now we're here, and it's, you know, she didn't win a primary, she was chosen, and they keep keep bringing people along, and then it's like the ratchet effect. It keeps going more right and more right and more right.
And she honestly, like, I'll give her credit in this regard, because like she is in a little bit of a tough spot. I mean, it's Democrats' own fault that she's in that spot, but it's like she has to like do this weird balancing act where she has to kind of distance herself from Joe Biden, but also can't totally shit on him. Like that is a little bit of a difficult spot to be in. I get it.
Right. Yeah. So that's interesting, right? I'm glad you bring that up, because she can't really articulate why she's different than Biden and why we should vote for her, versus it being just another Biden presidency with a different face.
Yeah, because it's like
she hasn't been able to, because
you're gonna have to double speak out of one side of your mouth. They
spent months saying Biden was fine when it's clear that he wasn't. And it's interesting that no one's still talking about the idea that a guy who just befuddled and completely confused after like 8 o'clock has the nuclear codes.
So if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Thanks, Joe.
No,
Joe, you realize you're not in the race anymore, right, bud?
Yeah, he just called all of the Trump supporters garbage. Did you hear about that?
What did he say?
The only garbage I see is the Trump supporters.
Poor kids are just as smart as white kids, or what the hell did he say? Was it something like that?
Yeah. He was like kind of secretly like,
we all know Joe Biden's a fucking racist.
Yeah, he was racist, but not like in the like, you know, like we should be drinking from different drinking fountains type racist. He was like he was just like, "Ah, bless your heart. I know better than you. I'll take care of you." Kind of like white knight.
White savior kind of racism that a lot of people on the left have right now, and they don't realize it. They don't
Which I
realize
guess
how
isn't
racist
as
and
harmful,
condescending
but
they
it's
are.
still very demeaning and patronizing.
And super condescending, yeah. I have a couple of tweets about the
like banning menthol cigarettes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Bless y'all's hearts. You guys can't make this decision for yourself, so we'll make it for you. Like,
well, I mean,
meanwhile,
Kamala's doubling down on that. We're gonna give millions of dollars to black business owners. It's like, or black small business owners. It's like, because you guys clearly can't take care of yourselves, so here's some money from us. Like, it's just so condescending and gross.
Right.
I got a few tweets from the
I always go back to
Washington Post debacle
speech about how policy should be colorblind.
Alex tweeted, "It's really funny to see all of the, quote, I'm leaving Twitter people from 2 years ago leaving the Washington Post instead and posting it on X." George Conway, your Washington Post subscription has been canceled. He just posted a screenshot of it. Mark Hamill, just canceled the newspaper that told us, quote, democracy dies in darkness. Hashtag boycott WAPO. Keith Olbermann, that fucking psychopath. Want to post your post subscription cancellations? Question mark. I'll start. It's like,
that'll show
so fucking good, man. It's so good. And then all Jeff Bezos said was that presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales in an election. And that's such a great point, right? Because who in the hell last week was sitting around waiting to like fill out their absentee ballot until they saw the endorsement of the Washington Post? Like, who was sitting around waiting? I can't go to the polls yet. I got to see who the Washington Post endorses before I go cast my ballot.
Sitting around hovering around the cancel button on their subscription, waiting for them to, whether or not they were going to do it. Like, your yearly prescription for WAPO is up. Would you like to renew? Well, you know what? I'm going to hold off to see if they endorse Biden or Harris.
The other great thing is, what did I see? Like, it was a huge chunk. I don't know the percentage. It was like half or more or something like that, or a third. I don't know. But a large percentage of WAPO's editorial board, like, left in protest. They quit. And I look at that, and the first thing I think is, like, you want to talk about fucking privilege, to where you have the ability to just walk out of your like bougie ass editorial job at the Washington Post because your boss decided that this paper isn't going to endorse a candidate. The same people that write editorial pieces about how privileged we all are based on some inimmutable characteristic that we have, like the color of our skin. You have the audacity to do that for fucking whatever it's been now, 10, 15 years. But you have the privilege to just walk away from your job because of
a
disagreement with your boss.
Walk away from my job because my boss just did something that had no effect on my work life or payment or salary or what I could write or do or whatever.
Or no effect on the way your company's going to do business at all.
At fucking all. I wish I had that privilege.
You would swear that Jeff Bezos endorsed Donald Trump. Like, that's the level of outrage.
You would think it'd be like, he's like, surprise, this is why I'm bald. I'm a fucking Nazi. Like, you know what I mean? Like, The way they're reacting to it.
It's absolutely wild. I mean, I love it, to be honest with you. That's why I've had so much fun this week.
You think a billionaire can have hair loss? Fuck off.
just watching meltdown of the establishment media is one of my favorite things. It's just one of my favorite things. And that goes for both sides. Like when Fox News has their weird meltdowns, or like the New York Post, or the Washington Examiner and New York Post, they're kind of right-leaning, but not really. But anyway, when any of them, or like when I see Ben Shapiro having a meltdown over a Palestine protest, he's not establishment media. All I'm saying is when like media that gives you stupid and bad content has a meltdown on one side or the other is glorious to me. I absolutely love every minute of it. So this has been a really fun week. I haven't had to drink as much as I thought I would last week up to the election here. So
yeah, there's a weird calm, a weird peace. I don't feel tension like in the air. Like even like remember in the 2020
before the
election,
storm,
like there was like, I feel like the tension between everyone was like palpable. Like you could cut it with a knife.
People have lives now. Back then they didn't. It was because everybody was locked down for COVID. So
that's true.
That had a lot to do with that.
But even 2016 felt very like angsty.
A little bit, but remember, it was a foregone conclusion that Hillary was going to win that election. So there was a lot more shock after the fact, after she lost.
Yeah.
This time around, you're going to see it in the media, but I think the vibe that you get from like normies on the street is like, yeah, this election is going to be close. Like,
right, but you don't see everyone arguing with each other on Facebook. Or or TikTok even like.
Well, that's because all the smart people stopped doing it. So like it's just the morons that are screaming back and forth at each other now, and nobody else is paying attention.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Because we get it. I mean, you see it, but you are right. You don't see it quite as much.
Yeah,
you don't see it on.
I don't know. It doesn't feel as like, oh, You get what I'm saying?
I do. You have anything else?
Talking about? I guess what to watch for. So. There's a couple of things that I have written down of what to watch for the election next week. Things that I'm going to be paying attention to anyway. There's 3 ballot measures that I think will be interesting when it comes to like the culture and like where society is like as a whole in our country is moving. Marijuana is possibly going to be legalized in Florida. That's going to be a ballot measure. They're leaving it up to the people.
It'll pass. It always does.
It always passes. You're right.
Because conservatives smoke pot too. It's not fucking 1973 anymore.
Right. And so that's interesting because it's like a deep South red states doing it, like we're probably closer and closer to it just being legalized, which is a phenomenal industry. Because like with weed, like the way I always look at it when I think about it, like when it comes to jobs, we're talking millions of jobs because not just the weed industry, but along with cannabis being legalized to being able to be grown, hemp comes with it, and hemp can be used to make wood. Like they can make like hemp like bricks. There's hemp glues, there's papers, there's fabrics. Like there's so many things that can be done with it. And it grows like corn to where like you can grow a crop in a summer, chop it all down, make a pulp, It's just
for those who don't know, when Corey starts talking about hemp, get ready to listen for a while.
No, it's just it's this like kind of like a miracle crop that can be used for so many fucking things.
You really do love
illegal
hemp,
because of a big industry lobbying our government to make it illegal because the paper industry felt threatened by hemp.
When Corey talks
it's like
about
such
hemp,
a conservational thing too. Like we're talking about like forest versus a plant like corn that can grow.
I'm with you, but you understand when you talk about hemp, you talk like you talk like a vegan.
Oh,
lecturing meat eater.
Yeah. The other thing on the ballot in Florida is abortion.
In Florida, that should be interesting. What's the ballot measure? Is there like a Like a time frame? Is it like a 6-week thing, or like, do you know?
You know what? The Supreme Court's 2022 decision to overturn the legislative longstanding of Roe v. Wade ruling the enshrined abortion rights set off a wave of states attempting to alter their laws. Florida citizens started their own petition to make sure that abortion is protected in the early weeks of pregnancy when most women are aware they are pregnant. And in the cases of rape and incest, the state law is currently one of the most restrictive in the country. So they just want it to be a couple weeks to where it's like you can just get the pill or something like that. Reasonable.
Legalizing like the pill abortion, or like,
reasonable. And then in Arizona, there's an one regarding immigration, where Arizona's GOP-controlled legislator has asked voters to decide a controversial measure on immigration that would empower the use of federal resources to check employment eligibility, and give state and local law enforcement officials the ability to detain and deport undocumented immigrants. If I was there, I'd probably go for that.
That would like that. I think that'll probably pass. But it's interesting because Arizona, at least, Arizona is one of those states I'm not really sure what's going to happen this time around, because it's one of those like historically red states that kind of went a little more blue in the last election. And so I'll be interested. That's actually really an interesting one to look out for, as far as like where do border people that are actually on the border, like where are they on the immigration issue? Because like, you hear it and like you
They're
get
definitely
like
a lot more about trying to get a little wrapped
right.
up
What I mean is
like...
what I mean is how intense is it really, right? Because you listen to one side and it's like, people in El Paso don't think it's as bad as they're portraying it in this conservative publication. So I think the way to really settle it is, let's see what they say on the ballots. I'll be interested. That is an interesting one. I think that'll kind of put it to bed. Like if it passes with flying colors, if it passes bigly, as Trump might pass bigly, then yeah, it's obvious that the folks on the border, as a generality, really are concerned about it. Really are as concerned about this as we're told that they are.
And I guess the Senate votes to watch for is, I think it comes down to one. Oh, fuck you, fucking ads. There's Michigan, Pennsylvania, Montana, and I think there's one more.
Some swing state. Montana's
Arizona. Right.
Kind of a
There's
swing state, but not really.
Where senators are for bids. Right now, I'm on USA Today. In Michigan, Democrat Rep. Alyssa Slatkin has consistently pulled a few percentage points ahead of her opponent, former GOP Rep. Mike Rogers, and the seat left open by retiring Democratic Senate Deputy Stabenow. About time. Girl was how old?
Yeah, right.
Insider Advantage's poll over the weekend shows them tied with the poll margin of error of 3.7 percentage points.
And Slotkin
Pennsylvania has been tighter with the incumbent Senator Bob Casey, a Democrat, typically polling around 1% point above GOP candidate David McCormick. Insider Advantage's poll, also conducted over the weekend, shows them tied with a margin of error of 3.5%.
I can confidently say. Go ahead.
What'd you say?
I was just going to say I can confidently say that I did not vote for either Alyssa Slotkin or Mike Rogers.
Yeah, you went for the Mrs. Caucus. A poll from the Hill and Emerson College
the Libertarian guy.
GOP candidate Tim Sheehy ahead of incumbent Senator John Tester by 4 percentage points in the race that is likely to determine control of the U.S. Senate next year. So that's one to watch. And then incumbent recommends and Ted Cruz and Deb Fish, Nebraska also remained ahead in polls and against challenges of the representative states. Cruz faces Colin Allred, a Democrat, and Fisher is up against independent candidate Dan Osborne. So I heard a little bit about the Dan Osborne guy, and he's just like, he was just this fucking little industrial worker, working in a shop, and he helped get it unionized, and then he got fired for it. So now he's just running for office. But he's just like some 36-year-old guy. Doesn't have a degree, I don't think. I don't hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, but just a regular old blue-collar worker just taking a shot at it. And a true underdog story.
The 8 people in Nebraska that will vote for him. Congratulations. Ted Cruz. You know Ted Cruz is going to win, right?
Probably. I think they're dumping a ton of money into that one, though.
I'm sure they are. They always do. They always act like Ted Cruz. Like it wasn't his, because he ran against Beto O'Rourke once, right? Before Beto ran for governor or after, one or the other. I don't remember.
He also ran for president, didn't he?
Ted Cruz, yeah.
No, Beto O'Rourke,
right? Both of them did. Anyway, yeah, look for those things. It's going to be fun. We're going to be live here on election night, having a good time. Come join us. I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about. I think we're just going to go with the flow. We'll probably have John King over on one of the... I will say this. As much as we all hate CNN, nobody does the election board as well as John King. That's like the one thing CNN has that is great, because he's so good on that fucking board, pushing the buttons. He's probably half drunk, which is probably why Dana Bash divorced him. But yeah, I hope John King, one of these elections, is just wasted while he's running that board. The next morning he'll probably be fired, but for that night, it'll be an epic night. No better time to do it than this world-ending election.
All of us writing in circles are all just.
Oh yeah. Anyway, don't miss us on election night next Tuesday.
And I'll see you next Tuesday.
5th. That's mean. It's a mean thing to say to me.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep. Uh-huh.
He as always has been yip.
And he's been Dan Griffin.
It's been Libservative. And until election night, we are out of here.